Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
Yeah, and we are here with Sarah Streitz. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. You've got a fairly new album, just came out about a month ago.
Yep.
Cut Flowers.
October 9th. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so almost exactly a month ago. I have 1,000 questions in my head, so I'm going to stop myself and I'm going to say, just tell us, you've been playing music for about 5 years, 6 years or something. Tell us a little bit about how you got started and your background, and because you've got an amazing background.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. I never, as a younger person, I never studied music, nothing. And when I was, I think, 46, one of my kids had a guitar lesson at the Linden Hills House of Music that they were all signed up for, like the second semester of their lesson, and all of a sudden she refused to go. It's like we were about to leave the house. She refused to go. She put up a big tantrum, and normally I'm not, one to give in to something like that, but I don't know, I did. I was like, okay, whatever, I can't deal with this. And then I just said, well, I'm going to go to your lesson instead. And I just took her little guitar and I went, and I've always been a big fan of music, and my husband's a jazz musician. My kids at the time were kind of in classical things around town, and a lot of people around me play music, and so I just thought, well, why not give it a shot? What do I have going on? I'll try. So that's what happened, and I took guitar lessons for like 2.5 years, and then suddenly I kind of formed a little group of side men and started doing some gigs. And soon after, probably like 6 months maybe into gigs, I just went into the recording studio. It was a little bit presumptuous, like to think, oh, I'm just gonna like make a record. But I was so into it. I was really obsessed and practicing so much, and I just was writing so many songs, so I was very excited about it all. And then my first record came out in like May of 2015, and I think I started taking guitar lessons in 2012. So it all happened very quickly. And I'd say, after that, a couple years passed of just sort of playing around town. It just, nothing, the typical gigs around town, nothing real high. It's not like putting out a record rose me to some other level. I was just, scrounging for gigs like everybody else. And then I had more songs, and I did another record in 2017. And then after that, I don't know, you go in these cycles, I think, where you work really hard, you're playing a lot of gigs, and then suddenly it's like if there's not a real payoff, or you're not getting a better gig, you can have like a downslide, and you sort of back off for a while. I sort of did that after my second album. In the last year and a half, I was playing more just little like things where I would just play with the guitar player from my band, because I don't know, it's really the getting gigs that pay. My guys, I have these professional musicians who play with me, and they'll play with me for like 50 or 60 bucks, and that's like passing the hat half the time. It's not some of these venues, they don't really put out for the band, and after a while that gets kind of tiresome, and you just say, okay, whatever, I'll just do this or do that. But I was in the before I recorded this record, I was kind of getting back into it a little bit more and playing some gigs, and I had some good gigs set up before COVID struck. And I went into the studio for this record in February, and we just did all the tracking live. I sang everything live, and we really just dubbed over very little. It was just like a little percussion here. The guitar player did his solos, and I think I had to sing like 2 tracks from the record, one again. Otherwise, everything was done live, and my whole idea was just to kind of get this out there quickly and not with a lot of fanfare, with a lot of production. So anyway, that's where I am now.
That's where you are now.
That's how I got to where I am now.
I love every bit of it. I had a kid who, when she was 5, her dad signed her up for violin. And that year was the worst year of our life, our shared life. And I think and I remember at one point, this 18-year-old Suzuki teacher looking at me saying, "Why didn't you learn the violin too?" Well, because I got 2 more kids at home and I run a business. That's why I don't do it. So I just was at that crossroads where really I should, except I have no music ability whatsoever. But
you might.
I might have to start with spoons.
I didn't know I did either, but you give something a try, and
it gives me such hope. It gives me such hope for 2 reasons. And I've seen you play a number of times, and I remember hearing it's part of the story. And I'm like, I love that for 2 reasons. One, because I took the road most traveled and you took the road least traveled, and it has brought you to a great place. And 2, I'm like, damn, she's closer to my age than I would have thought. Like, I thought she was much younger.
Oh,
You
no.
look great.
I have 4 kids, and 2 of them are out of the nest. So
yeah, we are in the same. I got two in college, and so I like that. So that's great. Yeah. So now, which takes us to where you are now. So you did all the recording in February of 2020, and then now you've released it. So how do you celebrate releasing it? What has been
yeah, it's so odd to release a record with no gigs. I mean, I did not. Some of the people in my backing band, they're not comfortable doing anything during COVID, and there wasn't that
right.
There weren't a lot of opportunities anyway. I mean, maybe for people who are sort of in an upper echelon in Minneapolis, they were able to get something, but I didn't even try. It was so it's a very strange thing, and so I was like, well, whatever, I'll just release it, put it out there. And for the first time, this is my 3rd record, and I never hired a publicist before. I did do like a radio campaign on my 2nd record, and I got all this sort of play, some station over here plays your song once, and then this station plays. It's a lot of bullshit, really. But I did it, and it was kind of fun to see. Oh yeah, I got played here at University of New Mexico and blah blah, Phoenix, and here and there, Kentucky. But it doesn't really go anywhere. I don't know what I was thinking when I did that with my 2nd record without doing local publicity, but I didn't. And now this time I thought, okay, I'll hire someone to do all that dirty work, and so that's helped a lot. It's helped a lot to just not have to really worry about that, and let someone else send these press releases out and let the chips fall where they may. So in some ways, it's less pressure maybe to release a record during a pandemic when there's no gigs to have to set up and figure out. But at the same time, it's also difficult to well, how are you gonna get it out there? And I am not somebody I make my own videos. They're just super DIY. I do them on my phone. I enjoy it just for the artistic process. And every time I do it, I kind of learn more. So I think, okay, oh, I made this one better than that last one. But a lot of people most people hire these professional videographers. They do these elaborate videos that maybe somebody watches once. Okay, maybe that's how it's done, but I don't know. I don't have that kind of a budget. I put my budget into the recording, and then after that, I do the art, cover art, everything myself.
Amazing.
Nothing is, as maybe I just don't follow those rules for what people do. And maybe that's because I really wasn't a musician. I haven't been in this business. I just sort of fell into it. I don't know how it all happened, but I fell into it
It's because you're a woman of many, many talents.
well, I don't know about that, but
Well, and I think a lot of musicians now, a lot of them that we've talked to are they're kind of learning that the DIY is not the worst, you know. I mean, because people have had the time to do it and they've had the, you know, some of that. So did you do the video for Shake Shake then?
I did. That was just like, okay, I'll take this public domain
Awesome.
and there was some other cartoon video, and then I just like interspersed it with myself. I felt kind of good about it after I made it, but I've made I have a couple more that are waiting in the wings that I think are a little better than that one artistically, but literally I'm doing these things on my little Android phone without the app I have is so, I'm sure that younger people would just say, oh my God, even my kids, they're like, Mom, what is that?
That's
My son was a film studies major at the university, but he doesn't have time to help me to make a video. So, you know, I'll just do it myself.
that's what I gotta ask you. How do your kids feel about the videos and the music and everything all together? You know, they're like, whoa.
Mostly they've been, you know, they mostly think it's cool. I think some of them, even, you know, I had a gig a couple years ago. I remember, well, more than one gig, but one that was at the Acadia by the U of M, and like my son and all his friends came. You know, so they like it, but they also think, I'm sure it's they're a little bit like, Mom, why are you spending so much time editing that video? You know, I'll spend hours. You wouldn't know looking at the video.
Oh, that's
I spend hours, but I do redoing things, you know, going over and over just for this little like phone app video. Just because I enjoy the artistic process, really. That's what it is. And looking for to make it as good as it can be.
Well, and you are obviously a natural lifelong learner too.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, am I remembering correctly that you have a master's degree in education?
I do. I was a teacher for a number of years. I taught adult immigrants English ELL classes in St. Paul for like 10 years when I was raising my kids. Yeah, so, you know, that mentality of just definitely their lifelong learner.
Nice. You should have, I taught English for a while in Spain. You should have played music then. I remember one of my students' favorite things is when they'd have to figure out the words to songs, English songs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Twisting those
up. I've done those lesson plans before.
Yeah, those are always they're the ones that the kids like, you know, people like to do, but it's but yeah, you must be, I mean, to have the talent of that is amazing. I mean, I think that's, as I said, that lifelong learning and that the joy and the passion of it. You know, I always take, especially if I know I'm going to be talking to somebody, I always take notes as I watch the videos and listen to the music, and the Shake Shake, joyous. I'm like, that is just a joyous, it's just fun to watch. It's just, and I don't write that a lot really right now in the middle of the COVID winter.
Yeah, right. And I mean, that song, it's a real light kind of, just, there was not a lot to the lyrics or anything. And actually we changed the groove on that at the last minute. And that whole thing was just improvised. It used to be a little more of a country song, and we did this live tracking, and we just said, okay, let's do it this way. And we switched it up, and I put my guitar down, I think, because usually I play the guitar on that, but we were going to funk it up a little bit. And then I had to change my phrasing a lot and the singing, and we didn't change, like I did it, and that's just how it came out. I mean, I probably could have put more production on that song and horn section or whatever, but the whole idea of the record, it's called Cut Flowers, and these probably like 7 of the songs were songs that had been hanging around a while. They had, for some reason, not made it onto my first 2 records, but I felt like, oh, I need to get them out there and just out of there so I can move on to something else. And there were a few newer ones. And my first 2 records were more like, the first one I had like an actual outside, like my bass player was also the producer. And then the engineer was there. So there were a lot of people involved. There were more add-on musicians. And, you know, I really liked that record a lot. The second one we did a little more organically. It was same group of guys, a new guitar, another guitar player who now still plays with me came in. And that one was just a little bit more like edit as we, you know, go, and it was a more organic process. And the guy who's the engineer, Greg Schutte, also was the producer, and I liked how that turned out. But then this one, it was just more, I co-produced it, and I felt like the whole vibe was just to be looser, not bring like a pedal steel or an organ or all these instruments that I don't play with these when I do a live show. It's just a quartet. And I would like to have, you know, a Hammond organ guy or a horn section or some strings, but who can afford to pay musicians? You know what I mean? It's like, I felt like, well, I just want to get this out there. The way it sounds when we play a gig, do it kind of raw and real. And it might, like, there's a few songs where like I'm doing this little intro and I'm all alone without my little professional guys yet, because that's how the start of the song goes. It's a little janky, a little loose, not exactly radio friendly in some cases, but that's just how we did it. And I don't know. I like how it turned out. I do.
I was gonna say real life is good. It's good to see real life, I guess. Okay, I'm going to not a lighter song, but my favorite song that I wrote down like almost every lyric in there because it was so freaking phenomenal is Let the Night Take You.
Oh, nice.
What I need to hear about this, because seriously, the lyrics are insane.
Oh, well, that song, you know, it was kind of hanging around, and I think it just when I wrote it, it was just more like a episodic. You're sitting there, you're in a moment, you have a mood, and then the lyrics come out. And some of the, you know, things like Black Waters, take your heart by the black waters, take your heart by surprise, fill your space up with empty cries. There's some reference to, like there's I don't know if it was like a Glenn Hansard song maybe, where I might have even been at one of his concerts where he's talking about like riding the black waters, and just that image kind of stuck with me, and then I repeated that in that song. It's not like it's about a particular thing. I think it was definitely one of those things where that just came to me in a moment of kind of darkness, and then it evolved from there. And it's pretty simple, you know. There's not a lot to the song, but I appreciate that you like that one, because that's not necessarily one of the songs people would even, you know, talk about. So
I love it. But now that you say the imagery, all the lyrics, I can see how you use that for those. So that's cool.
You cover a lot of topics in the album. It's a wonderful mix of light and heavy.
Yeah.
I won't say dick, but I mean, it's if you don't mind telling us a little bit, like Keto, I mean, that song is that's a heavy song.
Yeah. Like 25, 26 years ago, my husband and I were teaching in Quito at Colegio Americano, an Ecuadorian school, and I got pregnant, and I had a totally normal pregnancy, and then at full term there was complications that, unbeknownst to me, I had these complications from being Rh negative, which isn't usually a problem in today's world, but something happened. And anyway, so that song is really just about the heartbreak of losing your first child, but also the beauty of what that experience was like in Ecuador, and the beautiful people, and you know, the spiritual side of things in a country like that. Yeah, so, and you know, I've said this to somebody else that interviewed me. It's not like the music part of that is very Ecuadorian in its musicality. It's more, you know, like something on Willie Nelson's Teatro record. You know, if it was like an Ecuadorian song, it might have Andean flutes and it would have that kind of a vibe, but that's just not the vibe that I could bring to a song. So I wrote it how I wrote it. It's just kind of Latin infused. And I think the band gave it a really nice treatment. Greg Schutte and Blair Krivenik and Nick Salisbury, they're just professional guys. They just great. So yeah, that's a heavy song. But I'm glad I put it on there. I had that for a while and I didn't put it on my first two records because it just seemed like, oh, do you put a song about your child that died? You know, it just seemed like, you know, is it insensitive? Or so finally I just decided, yeah, I'm gonna put it on there.
It'll bring comfort to someone. No?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so many people go through that. I'm not the first one, of course.
No.
So, and I mean, for me, it was a terribly sad thing that happened, but I've said this before, like none of my other children would have been born if my firstborn son hadn't died, because all the timing would have been different. So the idea of just accepting that death happens and it changes you and you move forward and new things come of it. So, you know, because that song it has sad lyrics, but then the musical part of it is sort of a little uplifting at times. So
I taught English as a second language in Spain for a year, and it has some of those tonal things too. As you said, it's kind of that Latin.
yeah.
In the song, and maybe it's because I'm listening to all of this over one point piece. It seems that you allude to a woman at home, your mother, I presume, as well.
Yeah, because my mom had cancer in Minneapolis. She was dying, and I left to go teach in Ecuador when she had a recurrence of breast cancer. She didn't want me to stay. You know, she encouraged me to go, and so, you know, it was kind of a double whammy, like, oh, I have this tragic thing happen, and then I end up, my husband and I, we leave early from our teaching contract, and we come back here, and my mother's dying, and then she ended up dying, you know, within a few months of our return. So it was almost like his dying brought us back to be with my mother. You know, there were a lot of beautiful kinds of things about it.
And that kind of it is offered in that your Fades to Black song on the album.
Yeah, and that's about my mom. So I have those two kind of death songs in the back of the record cover. I've got it's kind of a dark cover art. It doesn't quite, you know, I mean, I'm sure some marketing person or some graphic artist or whatever, album artist was gonna design my record cover, they might have done it differently, but I was focused at the time just on some of that darker side. So the back of the record has, like, I even have it here, it's like a cemetery. And you can't really see it
there, that's perfect.
It's not, it's a cemetery actually in New Mexico, in Galisteo, a place I love dearly. And my son did the art where he created this shadow. And then the front is a little mournful too. It's like I'm looking back at Hank Williams, who was an early inspiration as I was learning the guitar in 2012. But also sort of looking back to look forward. And you know, it's a little bit of a melancholy message, but whatever, you know, after you make a record and it's sort of done, and then you're stuck with all these, oh, I have to now figure out my album art and all this business stuff, you can get kind of down about it. And so I'm always a little bit not, you know, maybe I should do the album art before I start the recording. Because after you finish the recording, it's a little bit of a death. You feel kind of, everything kind of, you're done with it, and there's a downward spiral or something. I once, Jim Walsh, who you guys probably know.
Yeah.
He once said, like, the CD album release party is like the death. That's the death of the record. And I kind of relate to that, because I really struggle after. I love the process, but then once it's done and you have to do all this business stuff and come up with these things like record cover art, and so my mood gets dark, and then my record covers are not, they all sort of reflect that.
Well, and it's this year especially to do that and to not even have the celebration of shows afterwards.
Oh, yeah, right. No shows, no release party. It's very, you know, what did I do? I sent out like a big email blast, and you hope, oh, people are going to go and listen on Spotify or buy it. It's a real tough equation, this whole music selling, getting people to listen to it. Everybody's busy. People have multiple things going on in their lives, and it's quite a challenge to get people to kind of pay attention to something that they might not even give a shit about anyway. You know, they might be your friend, but they might not even like your, you know, it might not be their cup of tea, your style of music or whatever. So that part of this whole thing is quite challenging. I'm not really sure how to figure it out. You know, some people are really good at it. I notice, you know, I watch other local musicians, and they're able to, they got their little brand figured out, and they got their vibe, and oh, she's the coal miner's daughter, or they're the 70s retro band, or he's the mountain man from Montana or whatever. They have it figured out, and people like that. They have, you know, they got their costumes they wear on stage, and I just, you know, that's a hard part, because I'm just not really into that kind of figuring that kind of stuff out. I just enjoy performing and writing songs, and I love playing. I do love playing gigs. I love the energy of that, and playing with the backing band I have they're so good. It's a rush to play with guys like that. So. But who knows when it's going to happen again, you know, like I'm sure you guys talk to a lot of musicians. You think, are we, you know, months pass, and how do you stay kind of motivated for something like this, like music, where you have to be kind of doing it to keep your energy? I mean, many things are like that, I suppose, but music in particular seems like there's so many people they're used to playing regularly, and then it's just nothing. So what are you doing? I'm not doing the live stream Facebook live. That's just complicated with the sound. And I mean, I really admire people who are doing some of that stuff, but that's a tough, trying to get people to like click, oh, it's Friday night, come to my Facebook or whatever. It's tough. It's a tough thing.
Yeah. it's and you might be into it on a Monday, either as the performer or as the, as the music lover. You might be into it on a Monday, but not on a Friday. I mean, just the world. And I think that musicians are in a super precarious position because there's the relationship with the audience. So yeah, I may have a job that I like. I may have a job where I go to the legislature and I listen to them. I can listen to them from home. There's no difference there. Like I may miss being out, but for you, it's part of the equation, I would think, would be the interaction with the audience. I know as an audience member, that interaction is a huge part of it,
Yeah. And I mean, I think myself, I'm not someone who was playing like weekly gigs. I didn't try that hard to get that. You're just not gonna, who gets those gigs? There's people who have their weekly thing and it's almost like they can't live without it. If there were some decent, they're not that many gigs in town, and to get the ones that you like and the sound is good and it's at the right time of day or whatever, is difficult. And then you're scrounging around with so many people who are talented and have some, and younger people who's it's their time. It's not really my time. I'm a little old, so I mean, I miss it, but I wasn't one of these people. Like I think of some of the people I know who were just playing a lot of gigs and who, it was their whole life. Or the side guys guys who play with me, they had so many gigs. They toured, they had gigs in town, gigs out of town with national acts they tour with, and then all that's just gone. How people deal with that, I'm sure it's very difficult.
Well, when it changes your life and your livelihood.
Yeah. I hope it comes, there's good news on the vaccine front. So maybe things are going to start, maybe next spring, outdoor gigs.
That would be nice. That was, I was walking with my dad today and he's very, very bullish on this. He's very excited about that. I mean, aren't we all excited at the concept of a vaccine? And he's like, now that I see that there's an end in sight, I'm trying to be a little more careful. It's like, oh, yeah, now that there's an end, it is good.
Yeah.
It is good when your 77-year-old father decides he's going to be a little more careful. Good job, Dad. But it'll be, and you'll have an anxious audience awaiting.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I can keep my energy going. It's like if you're a creative person and it's the lull in all of this it's tricky. I guess it doesn't take that much to get your mojo back, but it'll be interesting to see who comes back in full swing after this and who just kind of fizzles out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Have you been writing? Have you been creating music?
I actually have. I have been a little bit writing some new songs because, like I said, this record, it's like these songs, they were kind of hanging around. A few of them were new, but it was more just wanting to get them recorded. It wasn't like I was stretching myself and doing anything that different from my other two records, except maybe it was just a little looser, a little more, maybe it was a little more my vibe than the first two, but I don't know. I like both those records. But these songs weren't necessarily like, I wasn't stretching my voice or doing something that I knew, because I really was never a singer before I started doing this. So I have work to do in that area. But I think if I'm going to do another record, I would like it to be a little bit more, more fleshed out or more carefully. I don't have like some co-writer or somebody who's like a producer that's saying, oh, Sarah, let's do this, that, let's change this. No, I mean, that's not how any of my records, even with these guys who kind of produced the first and the second, it's not like they were changing my songs or telling me to do this or that. I could probably use something like that.
I was just going to ask
You know what I mean? Like
want.
if someone all of a sudden came along and said they'd help me because I don't have all the musical knowledge in terms of, you know, writing music that most people who've been in it for a while have. And, you know, obviously, if you have a bigger budget, you can do, I listen to a lot of these local people, and I'm impressed at what people can get on their records in terms of the amount of production, because musicians like don't have any money. You think of people as, but maybe they just save up everything and put it into their recording, or maybe younger people, they can record for less because they have the equipment in their house, or some, you know, or maybe when you're a band, you're just all in it together and you don't, but when you're the singer songwriter and you have to make a record, it's all I have to pay for the studio time and pay my musicians and all that. So this record, I just didn't have the budget to like see some of these songs I could have done bigger, but I didn't have the money to put horns in or strings and have extra studio time. But if I do another one, I would like to be able to do that, because I think it would be fun to have a bigger sound, and you know, maybe that can happen. We'll see. I don't know. It's tricky.
I was gonna say there'll probably be so many people now that are so eager to play. They'll be like, "I'll do it for you, no questions asked, or no extra cash coming my way."
Yeah, I mean, it's not, like my husband is a sax player, a jazz musician, and a lot of his friends, horn players, I could get like people like that to play, but you know, it's studio time and all that, and extra editing and all that. It adds up fast, and it's not like it's that expensive. It's actually pretty reasonable, considering what these guys do. It's so reasonable, and yet it's, you know, you do have to have like some money stocked away or you have to be getting have a label behind you, or have some good gigs in town that pay you some money. But that again, that doesn't happen for people in my echelon of local music.
It might, but I think to get you, it's being one person. It's the reverse of, it's easy if I want to take myself to Europe. That's not so expensive. But if I want to take my 3 girls, you know, it's just the reverse of that. You know, if you got 4 of you, it's not so bad.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories of, you know, from the guys I play with, of people they play with locally who have high profile people who, you know, they go on a tour and they can't bring a full band, you know, and then they do their tour and they come back and they've broken even, and they're on a label, and it's definitely a difficult, I feel for people who are really full-time musicians who are trying to make something, and you know, it's not easy.
No, but
I could never I could barely go to Madison or Chicago or La Crosse or wherever. I went to Duluth once, and we drove up, my guys drove up, a couple of them spent the night and they did that on their own, but you know, I drove back. It was like, oh, if, you know, I wasn't going to be able to pay their hotel rooms and, you know, things that these guys, if you have professional sidemen, you know, you have to have that extra money, or the venue has to say, oh yeah, we have a room for you. I just don't think that happens a lot. So I don't know who it happens for. It must happen for some people. But,
Well, and I think there are some venues or you've got a network of places that you can stay, or you've got, or you know, you could think about a Kickstarter sort of a thing, and I think of that because I think the last time I saw you
wouldn't do that.
perform was at the Hootenanny in January.
oh yeah, that was one of my last gigs, the one at the Parkway.
Yeah,
That was a fun one.
it was really a nice gig, but I
Yeah.
remember it was a fundraiser for Foothold, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, for Terry Walsh's organization.
But I kind of remember that there was one very generous donation from an
Yeah.
audience member.
Yeah, yeah, she's a friend of mine, and she's very generous. She's really philanthropic, and yeah, I remember that. That was
Well, I didn't know it was a friend of yours, but what I remembered, it was kind of a nice donation in your honor, was made very clear.
Yeah.
So that was,
yeah, right. I remember that. It was, yeah,
so you
it
never
was
know.
it was kind of a shock.
It was very
But-
generous, and it was really, I mean, it was a really nice show. I mean, it was January, it was cold. It was one of those,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel terrible saying this now with the last 8 months that we've had. It's cold. Do I really want to get outside the house to see music?
Yeah.
So glad I did. I mean, I was glad I
Right.
did that
I
night
know.
too, but
Yeah, that was January, and then it was March. I mean, I think I had a gig, like a couple gigs in February, and then March, it was, I had been in the studio in February, and in March, another couple of days, and then suddenly the lockdown started, and I actually went to Greg Schute's studio, and we did like some editing. And I don't know. I don't think we had masks at
no,
that
you would.
point
I
in
mean,
March.
you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have.
Yeah, I
No.
don't think we had masks, but it was like we were supposed to kind of be on lockdown, but we felt like, okay, let's just sit at a distance. And
Right.
we did some work, and then everything else after that, there was some remote dub over solo guitar stuff, and then it was just, that was it. I didn't go back there, and everything was just done from afar. But it's hard to believe how long it's been, really. I mean, that Hootenanny, that was almost 11 months ago.
Well, it's funny because I kind of looked it up because I was like, was that this year? Was that last year? Was that 12 years ago? I mean, like it just really
Yeah.
the concept of time now is so.
Yeah, it's really, I think about it every day, like, you get into your routine with this whole COVID thing, and it's hard to imagine like getting out of it, and like going to restaurants, and it's hard to imagine that, because
Yeah.
even our circles have just shrunk so small, in all of this.
Well, I think I used to see music conservatively 5 nights a week.
Wow. Oh, you're
It's my misspent middle
you're
age
one
right
of
there.
those dear fans that just out. I'm impressed with that, because you hold a full-time job, but you go out that many nights a week.
Self-employment.
Yeah.
Well, and I would write reviews, and I would just, but I mean,
Yeah.
not as an avocation sort of a thing, but it was, and now I think, that would be, I miss it, but yeah, as you say, like, I don't know. Could I be out till 1 o'clock in the morning again? And
Yeah.
it turns out I can stay up until 1 o'clock watching The Crown. So I feel like I could still go out.
That 1 o'clock was always one of my problems with, I'm like, okay, I started getting more of these happy hour gigs at like the Dublin or something, because I just hate the late night. I'm not good at, I want to start playing at like 5, 6, 7, 8, but this business of like 9 or 10, I can't.
Isn't that funny? That's,
Yeah.
and I know the Dubliner well. I live in St. Paul. But I'm like, why don't you guys have music start at 10? Like, really, you're the only one who says that. It's like,
I like that early.
and I know I could get you. I mean, if it was that or nothing, but 5 o'clock is still the middle of my work day. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
wow.
just all.
Yeah.
And that's my own choosing, but that's.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm like, I get up at about 5 every morning,
Yeah, same.
average, always like 5 a.m. I'm out of bed. So
I haven't done that since I had to go get a bottle for somebody, which is a long time ago.
wow. Everybody's internal clock is.
It is funny. It's very, we're a lot more in tune to that. We're a lot more in tune to that. So that's, if you had a magic wand, let's picture May, let's be optimistic and say 7 months from now, you can pick a gig to do. What would you like for your debut return to be to live music world?
Some kind of outdoor thing. I love the Art of World gigs. I've had some of those in the past. That's so fun. I had one set up for last May, and then of course that all got canceled. So yeah, if May comes around and there's some, we're back at it, I'd love to have a gig at Art of World.
I think there's some hope for something like that.
I think there is. I think the outdoor. I mean, I work at a winery in Hastings, and all summer we had live jazz on Sundays. From like 1:30 to 4:30, and there'd be like 200 to 300 people there, but there's a ton of space. Everybody would be social distance. They'd wear their masks when they'd come up and buy a bottle of wine, but then they sit down with their little group of 2 or 4 and take their mask off, but it's all outside. And we had music all summer. And let me tell you that she's had jazz there for years on Sundays, but it was so popular because of COVID. And usually she just does it in like July and August, but they just kept it going all the way until like the end of October.
Wow.
People just kept coming. And I think it was because it was like there was nothing going on. And people were just craving it. And, usually it was everybody was following the rules. There was a couple times with like Ticket to Brazil played. I don't know if you know that band, but they all the Brazilians were out there dancing.
I'm like, that's a tough one to.
They were a little close to each other, but we heard of no COVID spread or anything after that.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
But I mean, the outside thing, I'm sure it's going to happen. It'll happen.
Sure. I went to a few shows that were, well, you know what? Actually, I had a ticket to go see Charlie Parr on Sunday. That did not work out for me. But indoors at the Dubliner, they have plastic around the stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. I
have seen it. I mean, it does make you think of Stand By Your Man, the Blues Brothers. Except it's plexiglass. But no, I think that's a good way about it too. But that outdoor is really, I have a much greater comfort level for outdoors. So.
Right. I haven't ventured into any place that has indoor music, but I know some places are doing it. Out in like western suburbs and some of those places, I think some of those bars, they've just gone about it business as usual.
Yeah.
The city, we're a little more cautious.
We're a little more cautious.
Yeah.
More cautious. That's. Sarah, tell people how to get a hold of you. You've got a website and you've got
a website. It's just www.sarahstreitz, SARAHSTREITZ.com. And that, on there's links to Bandcamp or to contact me, whatever, everything's there. I'm on Instagram and, Facebook. I don't particularly like social media that much. I don't mind Instagram, but Facebook just seems like it's just sort of nobody even looks at it anymore. But I have all that. I have a music page. I have a personal page.
That's good.
I have a Twitter account, but I don't ever use it. I think I have I canceled one years, a few years ago because I hated it. And then I had to have a Twitter address to get a gig or something. So I got another one, but I don't do that. I follow like 5 people and nobody follows.
Nobody follows you.
I mean, I'm just anonymous. I'm anonymous. So yeah, you can find me on all that business.
And it sounds like you might have a pocket full of videos that might be coming out soon.
I do. They're all. I have a few more, like 3 more, and it's interesting because I think this whole idea of, so many people focus on like, oh, the single, you put out your single, and I put out that Shake Shake, whatever, it's a single. I don't know why that one got picked, but I like a lot of the other songs, and so I just sort of decide, okay, I'm going to make videos for these. And actually, on some radio stations, like in northern Minnesota, the NPR affiliate KAXE.
Oh, I know some. Yeah, I know some. I do a lot of work in Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids, Bemidji, whatever.
Yeah, KAXE.
They have played like multiple times, 7 different songs for my record.
Good.
It's like they just play all these different ones, and I just love that because I think it's more about like the whole record. So maybe without gigs happening, that just putting something visual out there, even if it is sort of a little DIY video, it at least sort of keeps your record going a little bit, because how else do you keep it going when you're not promoting a gig? I mean, I have nothing to promote for like gig wise.
Right.
So I have to do something. So I'm trying to be, a little creative, and maybe it'll get it out there a little bit more in the atmosphere. And, I'd love it if people who hadn't heard of me would hear it and maybe find something that they'd like.
I think they will. I think there's been no industry more innovative due to necessity than the music industry.
Yeah.
Going back to the changes that Napster brought about, being able to share music online to now. I mean, there's just been a huge shift. And I love the music videos. I listen to music so much differently than as I said, I used to spend my nights going to see live music, and then I'd listen to music in the car. Well, I'm not in the car long enough to listen to music anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I all the way to Target and back. That's my driving right now, so it's a different. So when I do listen to it, I listen to it when I'm on a long walk. So I am much more apt to listen to a whole album.
Yeah, right. That's what I do too.
Or I'm on YouTube. I'm just looking for things to do. So I think that it's a very, you're very responsive to what people need. And I really enjoy the video for Shake Shake, so I'm excited to see the next ones.
Thanks. I do have one for Lee's that's on YouTube. It's kind of that it pays homage to Lee's Liquor Lounge, and that one I put out, I don't know, a few weeks ago.
All right,
I got one coming for First Class and Keto. So
nice.
Nice. Yeah, on the lookout.
All right. Well, I'm gonna look for the Lee's one now. That was always great. Well, I have a text from Heather, and her internet conked out, so that's why she unceremoniously disappeared. So, but I will say thank you for the both of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. I would encourage anybody to listen to the album. It is such a nice balance of. It's like a COVID day in an album. You're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. It's serious, it's playful, it's it really is it's fun to listen to. So I'm excited to see more. So
all right, thank you so much. Bye-bye.